Come on, you all got lists. Let's hear it here.
Congress.
Yep. I hate to think about it, but I'm afraid they are. Who else?
Insurance company.
Insurance company. Is this, you talking Social Security now or HICFA? Okay. Well, we'll do HICFA down here.
How old did you say you were?
You want that Medicare straightened out?
That's right. That's right.
Did the beneficiaries ever make some more?
Beg pardon?
The beneficiaries?
Well, you know, that's an interesting point. Let me put down AARP as a particular organized entity. Beneficiaries. Now, are beneficiaries a key stakeholder? Why? Make a case. I want you to make a case for why. I mean, I'm not saying they aren't. I just want you to make a case.
Because they're recipients of our work.
They have
Yes.
They benefit.
So they need, there's a general assembly.
They know how we work.
No, they're not general.
They're not.
Yeah.
You know.
Now, let me ask you this. Can beneficiaries influence your future success?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
But afterwards,
If they work,
they can.
Pretty sure they can.
they
Oh,
write
yeah.
their doctor's person.
And we'll put them up here.
They elect people in office to determine how they're going to use it.
Hell, I'm going to support you now that I get money.
How about a state agency?
Just state.
What kind of state agency?
Well, with us, it's DDS, it's right. Disability Determination Services.
Yeah.
For the non-SSA
For HICFA, it's providers.
It's providers, isn't it? Yeah.
I would say a lot of the labor unions have influence.
You certainly have a role to play with those employees, don't they?
Well, the union's the outside.
Or you mean the outside union?
Outside unions.
Ah, yes, indeed. But also internal. Yeah.
Also, the after boom babies, we're doing focus groups on these people right now, so they are having an effect on our provision.
So you're talking about the younger
Gen X.
Gen X or
Gen
Generation
Y.
Are you talking about Gen X or Generation.com?
You know what, that question is because a lot of them don't believe in the future anyway.
Oh, we don't?
But we are doing the focus groups and
They
they're
are, but are they really focus? Are they really stakeholders? Do they influence legislation? Most of them don't.
Secretly,
They
we work
have
with,
voting power, but they're
we work on Capitol Hill.
potentially, but
Supposing that you could get across to them the idea that you're not going to be able to take total care of their retirement. That is a message, right? That's key. We hope to, I happen to write the case book, the case textbook that's used in colleges and universities around the world in public relations. And one of the teachers who uses the book called me up and he said, you know, I have my students do a case of their own every year. So he says, you know, give me a case. And I said, well, why don't you have them go investigate, do something around Social Security, since young people, you know, don't know anything about it, they don't care about it, just what you're researching now. And so he did, and this is, of course, for senior students and getting ready to graduate. So they went out across campus and, you know, they really got excited by this. And they found out, no, everybody thinks Social Security, you know, that'll take care of me, I'm totally retired. What, I gotta start saving? I can't buy that six-pack? I mean, get real. Get real here. And he now does this annually. And on his campus, I mean, boy, the message is really out there. That, you know, you've got Social Security's great, it's only part of your system. And you might as well pay attention to it because when you get your first paycheck, you know, you get your first paycheck, what do you say? What's this?
That's it.
What's this, you know, FICA business here? Who the hell is FICA? Why aren't they getting any of my money?
Put them on your list was all FICA taxpayers.
Yes. Well, all right, but that's, You see what I mean? How the lists tend to get longer? So that's where you gotta take a list like this. You gotta say, okay, what are the most pressing problems now? What do I have to deal with now? And then which of these become key to deal with those problems? It would be lovely to do this long-term education. And hopefully we can do a little of that as we expand the public affairs staff and some other things. But you can see why that sometimes gets limited. And then that hurts us, but there just is a limit. And you got to deal with the problems now, or you won't have to worry about the long term.
I was gonna say one of the most important ones for us, particularly is Social Security.
Social Security.
Because the
Jeez.
Medicare comes through them.
These guys, oh boy, you got big ones. Yeah, that's a good point. And by providers, you mean, of course, every provider of healthcare service, hospitals, ambulances, docs in a box, whoever it is. Okay.
And the younger generation for us are caregivers, people taking care of their parents, and then they're elderly.
Well, that's an interesting public for you, isn't it?
It's growing.
The one that generally hates your guts because you've done away with the home health services and a few other things like that. So
You know your stuff, don't you?
good luck. We counsel the two largest health insurance companies in the country and also a number of large hospital systems. So I do know the issue. Anybody else? You get the point, right? You get the point of who they are, but you also get the point of how they have to come down and decide where can my energies go this year. I have limited resources of money, time, and personnel. See why we focus on opinion leaders and why the whole organizational family has to be involved. It's the only way we'll have the ground troops to possibly do this job. HICFA has a real problem because they don't have any ground troops. They don't have offices all over. You see, they do all their work through contractors who screw up and make their reputation lousy. But they're, it's contractors. So it's a good thing we don't do Social Security through contractors. I mean, if I called my local office, then it would have 16 items to punch on the voicemail instead of just 8. Right. Well, I think you got the point about that. We'll revisit that. But now notice this. One of the reasons that getting mass information out and the media can't help with these, most of the messages we need to get to these people, most of the education to do with them, the understanding we need to elicit from them is about basic factors of the system, right? How it works, what your benefits are, how you can collect, what happens if you get disabled. This is news? Why would the media ever write a story about that? It's not sexy. That's why you keep doing the crappy columns, because they cover that. But you see the problem here? The only thing that's going to get reported or talked about by Congress isn't what those people need from you. It's the glitches. It's the screw-ups. It's the odd cases. And so it's important to know that. By the way, you should also be aware of some additional TARP research. Remember I talked about TARP, who did the research about customer satisfaction, technical assistance research project. TARP wanted to know if there was a disconnect between what the public thinks they need in terms of knowledge and information and what management thinks they need. And so they went to management with a long list of basic issues, did quite a research study, went to managers of all kinds of institutions, government agencies, corporations, hospitals, everything. And management thought that the public already knew 85% of what was on this list. When they went to the public and asked them about that list, the public knew 15%. So there is this huge disconnect about what organizations think they need to be doing with their groups. And of course, over-communication, those other things we've talked about are all part of that. But you begin to see then why it's so essential to get basic information, and that means you have to narrow it a bit. You have to go for those who need it now, who can do something about it now. There's a whole lot of others we didn't even put on there. We didn't put on there, for example, some of the great opinion leader influencers, the clergy, retirement specialists on the job, HR departments. You know, we could go on and on and on. So who do you focus on? Well, you're going to have to think about that. I want to sort of wrap up this whole discussion of the why to, the theoretical underpinnings, so that we can spend our time this afternoon designing a program and finding out how to really discover the opinion leaders and then what to do with them once you've found them, how to motivate them to do the things that we know we want them to do behaviorally. So let me just wrap this up. I want to talk, well, let me put it in a historical perspective. It's a better story that way. It'll be more fun for you to listen to. The year is 1936. FDR is running for re-election. You remember. Oh, you don't? Well, FDR, you know, is viewed by us today historically as this incredibly important figure. He's up here on a pedestal, did just marvelous things for our nation. But in 1936, when he was running for re-election, he was a hated person by the establishment of this country. In fact, they called him a traitor to his class. Read your history books. And here's the reason. Here's a guy who was born rich, socially connected, and beautifully educated at Groton and Harvard. And he spent his whole political career caring about people who were none of the above. You know, he cared about us, not about his old pals. So they said he was a traitor to his class. Well, he comes up for re-election. It was a huge discussion around the country. And in those days, research showed that it was different than it is today. Not only was there not over-communication, there was terrific under-communication in 1936. It's hard for us to realize, but that recently, and in historical terms, that's pretty recent. In 1936, less than 20% of the people subscribed to any newspaper or magazine. Only about 24% had telephones, and those were probably 8-party lines. You shared with 8 other parties, or you had to dial up the operator. There were primarily rural populations. People lived out in the country, worked in agriculture, didn't spend a lot of time, you know, together, so there wasn't the grapevine, couldn't do what it does now. No radio, no television, none of those things they weren't even a dream in somebody's eyes. So under-communication was a real problem. It's still, by the way, the difficulties in Central America, South America, in Sub-Saharan Africa, in some of the Asian countries, they're still in those conditions. We keep saying, well, why don't they do this? Why don't they do that? They have no way to communicate to their people, literally. And so what worked, according to the research of the day, is for communication was the bullet theory. If you could put together a bullet of information and then you could hit somebody with it. See, that was the problem, was hitting them with a bullet. Because there weren't all these communication possibilities that we have today. If you could hit them with a bullet of information, people would actually think what you had told them, would probably tend to believe it, and they would do what you asked them to do. Because they knew they didn't have the information, and if they had any confidence at all in who was sending the information, they knew that that person did. And remember, those were the days when we tended to trust people who were in official positions or headed companies or ran the local hospital, local school. We were stupid, but I mean, you know, that's the way it was. A lot of trust in authority. And so the bullet theory is how it works. Society in those days was a pyramid, very much like Western Europe, a structured society. And up here at the top were a bunch of opinion leaders. They got together, made up their minds, and then they trickled this down over the rest of us through the bullet theory, and we did it. We believed it. So a small